Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon, and I am the food enthusiast here at Jameware Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your questions into the comment box, and you'll see me turn from time to time. So if there's any comments or questions for myself or my guest, please drop them in the comment box. Today's guest is Garrett Bess, host and executive producer of Bike to Bites on EarthX TV. He is a James Beard and Emmy nominated TV producer. Two of his favorite things are to ride his bike and eat good food. He is the founder and CEO of Two River Pictures, a full-service broadcast production company focused on the development of unscripted food, travel, and lifestyle programming. Let's bring Garrett in.
Hi, Dara. How are you?
I am doing great and excited to have you on the show because I have so many questions.
I'm excited to be here.
My first question is, what's on your plate today other than doing the show?
In terms of my physical food plate, or my plate in terms of things going on?
Things going on. And if there's something interesting on your food plate, I'd like to know that too.
Well, we are in the midst of, we're producing a couple of, we do a bunch of live events as well. We do all the video production support for a bunch of live corporate events. So we've got a couple of those in the early planning stages right now that are keeping us busy. We are on our corporate production side. We're cranking out content for social media for our Bike to Bite series on EarthX TV. Because that just started to premiere this month. And our official premiere is on April 25th. We're doing an event in Red Bank, New Jersey at the Vogel Auditorium, which is part of the Count Basie, where we'll be screening both the Philadelphia and the New Jersey episodes to a live audience. So that's what's currently on my plate right now.
Okay. So I want to tell everybody about you have 4 episodes for season 2. We're going to get to season 1, the Jersey Shore, which basically this is where we raise Central Jersey, right?
Correct.
Okay. Philly, which if you're in Jersey, you go to Philly. So Philly, Portland, and Stowe.
We have more actually for season 2.
Okay, I was wondering because it was 4 and then there was like 7 for season 1.
We did 9 in season 2. So season 2, you took us up to Burlington, Stowe. We did Chicago. We did Chattanooga, Tennessee. We did Austin, Texas. We did Boulder, Colorado, and we did San Diego, California, in addition to the ones that you mentioned. So.
Great. Terrific. And season 1 was St. Louis, Solvang, California, Minneapolis, Eugene, Bozeman, Boston, and Asheville.
Correct. And Savannah.
And Savannah, right. I missed that one. Okay. 7 out of 8 isn't bad.
You're pretty good. That's pretty good. I barely have, I have trouble memorizing all of them myself. Trust me.
So, at the beginning, I'd like to take people back to how they got started. You went to college to Emerson in Boston, and you majored in communication. Your degree was in communication. Did you know then that this was the avenue that you wanted to go into?
So funny. If I could rewind a little bit, like when I was in high school, I was producing local cable television in high school. In fact, I always like to say that the woman that gave me my break in television was actually Charlie Puth's mom.
Really?
She ran a local cable affiliate in the town that I grew up in, and they needed to provide local programming to the community as part of their charter, and it wasn't being taken advantage of. And so we came in, a group of us from high school, and said, we want to do, a television program for, people our age to kind of dial in and tune into. And we did. And we launched that when I was in high school. I think I was a sophomore in high school when I started that. And
Wow.
and I think at that point I knew I wanted to do television. I didn't quite know um, how I was going to get there. I also had an interest in advertising, and so producing commercials seemed like a really cool thing for me. And so I went to Emerson. I majored in advertising and PR, and I minored in television production. And I thought that was a good kind of way to marry the things that I thought I wanted to do when I got out of college. Unfortunately, when I got out of college, it was probably one of the worst times to graduate college and look for a job in advertising because it was 1988 and the market had just crashed at 87, and it was not a fun time. So I didn't immediately go into advertising coming right out of college. It was about survival and working and making what I needed to make to just keep living. And then eventually found my way into advertising and then producing direct response television advertising in the world of infomercials. And
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
and then the world of infomercials kind of led me to create my own company, um, producing infomercials, and then sold that company to Gray Advertising in New York in the mid 90s, and stayed on as the president of a division of Gray Advertising, producing direct response television programming, and left after 5 years, had a short stint in experiential marketing, and found my way back to, I really want to produce television. That's really what I want to be doing, and not commercials at this point. I really want to do programming. And so that's when I kind of, early 2000s is when I really in earnest went for trying to produce TV.
Right. I have a quick question for you, just out of plain curiosity. Any product in the infomercials that we might remember?
Oh yeah.
Or-
Oh yeah. You'll remember we did I produced and co-wrote um, an infomercial with Wolfman Jack in the 1980s called Solid Gold Rock and Roll. And it was the first time ever that a music compilation package was being put together in a half-hour format. And it did incredibly well in terms of its success. And then that was while I was working for another company. I worked for that company for a year, left that company and started my own company. And in producing on my own, I produced an infomercial which was very, very successful, called the Home Right Paint Stick. It was a big stick that you put down on the paint can, you pulled back on the handle, and it filled the tube with paint, and it fed the roller, and you could bang out an entire wall in like 60 seconds. And the product worked incredibly well, and it became a huge sensation. And the story behind that product is quite interesting, probably a whole nother episode for another day, but went on to become a very successful product. So yeah.
So, you're coming back up or coming to food, and we start talking, what was it, 1995 that the Food Network started, or 1993? And then we start getting into more and more reality TV and the shows that were being put together. And it was 93. Um, Anthony Bourdain started in 2002 with a cook's tour. We start thinking about these tours of food and travel, which is your passion, and obviously bikes. Um, I think your opportunity was a point was 2006 with Joan Cusack.
Yeah, first pilot I produced was 2003. Tried to sell it to the Travel Channel. That opened the door. The gentleman that I interviewed with, or not interviewed with, the gentleman that I pitched that first show with, which was a boating lifestyle show, um, he really loved the show that we did. We shot it in high definition in 2003. It was the first time people were really experimenting with HD back then, and we did it in a
Right.
very big way. And he um, ended up being moved over to another network within Discovery Channel. So he went over to Discovery Health, and he had to put the brakes on the show that we were talking about doing. But he promised me, he said, "Give me 6 months, and I promise you, the new head of development that comes in at Travel Channel, I will make an introduction." I like to always describe him as he was one of the only guys in television that truly kept their word, because literally 2 weeks before the 6 months that he promised, he makes a phone call to me and introduces me to the development executive. And that's when I pitched the Joan Cusack series, Local Flavor, which was the first series that I sold through in 2006 to the Travel Channel.
It was. Did you connect up with her? How did that meeting come about?
With Joan?
Mm-hmm.
We had a mutual friend. Her agent at the time was also a friend of mine, and she brought the three of us together. She was leaving the world of being an agent and wanted to get into producing. I was already producing, and of course, she had represented Joan, and the three of us came together, and we had an idea to form a company and to do a show where Joan would go and visit multi-generational family-run food businesses around the globe, around Europe, kind of find out what made them tick, what kept them sustained and relevant all these years doing what they did. And so, yeah, that's the show that we went in and we ended up producing for Travel Channel.
Well, how the technology has changed from 2006
Oh, yeah.
to now, you
Yeah, that show
have
was shot in standard definition. It wasn't even shot in high definition. So there you have it.
you have the flying cameras, there's so much going on. How many people, we look at these shows, how many people are behind the scenes
A lot.
when you're filming?
Yeah, so if you look at our show, Bike to Bites, on this particular series, we had a core group in the field of 7, and then we have 3 or 4 back at the home office on the production side. And then on the post-production side, there were 3 editors, post-production supervisor, motion graphics designers, colorists, sound mixers. So it's, all in all, it's probably a total crew of 15 to 20 people working on a show like this. And ours is relatively small. Like if you look at some of the other food related series that are out there and some of the digital platforms that have become very successful, those crews are ginormous. I'm on a smaller network with smaller budgets, so we have to try to do more with less. And I think we do a pretty good job at doing that.
You do that, and it's very intimate. When was it COVID and you were sitting at home and you went, what am I going to do next? When did you have that black and white to color moment, that Wizard of Oz moment where you said, I want to be in front of the camera?
It happened by accident. So I will tell you, during the pandemic, we were producing a lot of corporate video. We had done television. We had done work for Food Network and Cooking Channel in the early 2000s. I'd say not early 2000s, like 2010, 11, 12.
Right.
And then we kind of left that world a little bit to focus on our corporate business because that business was exploding at the time. We have a unique specialty within the tech sector. We do a lot of work for big tech in terms of corporate video communications. And that kind of took on its own kind of thing. And then the pandemic hit, and that world changed quite dramatically. People weren't able to have us come and film on location. We weren't able to travel the globe like we had done. We weren't able to film at big user conferences around the globe. So that all kind of came to a creeping halt. And then one of our corporate video clients, our corporate clients, a company called Palo Alto Networks, a very big cybersecurity company, needed help producing their event virtually. And since we know the world of broadcast and we know how to produce
Right.
broadcast television, we ended up producing their huge user conference in 2020, which had 50,000 attendees from around the world, all connected virtually for a conference in which we produced. And James Corden was the host of that, and it was a really highly produced
Right.
conference, it was at that moment that I was starting to feel creatively challenged because the limitations that were placed upon us in the world of virtual, as opposed to being able to be on location and doing things in the real, real time, uh, with human interaction, as opposed to virtual interaction. And I was feeling a little kind of down about where I was at and where I was creatively, and how I was feeling, not very challenged at all. And at the same time, during this period, I started to ride a bicycle. Now, I rode a bicycle when I was a little kid, but I never rode a bike like this.
So COVID is when you really started riding a bike.
Yes. So I got to needed to clear my head, and I started riding. My first ride was like a 5 mile ride on an aluminum frame bike, and I was like so excited that I accomplished a 5 mile ride. And then the next day I rode again, and I rode again. And that 5 mile ride became like a 15 mile ride, and then a 20 mile ride. And I started to feel a little uncomfortable on the aluminum frame bike. And at this point, bikes are flying off the shelf because of COVID. Everyone's going outside. You can't get bikes. This bike was feeling a little uncomfortable. A friend of mine who ran a bike shop says to me, "Well, you're riding the wrong bike. You need to be on something a little bit more fit for longer distances. Let me get you into a carbon fiber bike." He sells me a carbon, and he goes, "I happen to have one in your size, and if you don't get it now, it's going to be gone." And he was right, because the business it was
Right.
exploding. So I bought this carbon fiber bike. I started riding that, and now I'm doing 25, 30, 35 miles, and I'm going pretty regularly, on a bicycle 3-4 times a week. I lost 30 pounds during that time. My head was clear. I don't listen to music when I ride. I just listen to the crunch of the stones under my tires, and just kind of take in what's around me, because it's really, really meditative, in my opinion. And
Right.
it became an addiction, a good addiction. And so at the same time that this good addiction is happening, I'm feeling soul sucked creatively. My wife has the insight to send me away. The insight to send me away. She has the insight to send me to a place in the Berkshires, called Miraval. And I went for 5 days. I took my bike with me, and you're completely shutting down. So no phone, massage therapy, yoga, clean eating, sound therapy. And on the free time, I would get on my bike and I'd ride through the Berkshires,
Ooh,
and I would do some
beautiful.
journaling. I did some journaling. So I journaled this idea: how do I marry all the things that I love? Food, travel, producing, cycling. And I came up with this idea for Bike to Bites. I came back to my team and I said, "Hey, we're going to produce a pilot." And they're like, "Well, what do you mean we're producing a pilot?" And I go, "Well, I have this idea for a show. And look, I'm going to get in front of the camera just to kind of lay it out there, because I know what I want this to be. And, who are you going to sell it to, Garrett?" And I was like, "Well, what does it matter? Like, let's just have some fun. Like, we need to have some fun again." So we went out, we produced it. We did it in New Jersey, right here. And I cut it into a mini pilot. And then I shared it out with two people. One was my former network executive at Food Network, and one was my former network executive at Travel Channel. Incidentally, this particular person at Travel Channel that I met 20 years ago, that gave me my first break in television, was now heading up a new network called EarthX TV. And he sees the show, the pilot, and he calls me up and he goes, "Oh my gosh, like, I had no idea that you were hosting this thing." And I go, "No, no, no. It's just proof of concept. Like, I just look at the format. Tell me what you think. Do you like it?" He goes, "Garrett, I love it." He goes, "I love it." And he goes, "In fact, I love it so much, I want to buy it." And I go, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want to buy the show." And I go, "Well, great. I have some ideas on talent. I'd love to talk to you about who could host." He goes, "You're not listening to me." He goes, "I want you to host it." And I said to him, I said, "You want me to host the show?" He goes, "Yeah, I want you to host the show." And so um, that was it. We went, we negotiated a contract. Um, and I guess it was the summer of 2022, we filmed season one. And and that was pretty much it. It was like, it became successful. They aired it. They said it was very well received, and And then they decided they wanted to move forward with a season 2. So we did a season 2. And the funny thing is about season 1 is I never the episode that we did as the pilot in New Jersey never got to air because it was what we call a non-airable pilot. We didn't shoot it to be a show
Right.
at the quality level that we would produce a show at. So I felt bad because by the time we greenlit season 1, we had presented cities that did not include New Jersey. And so I felt really bad because this is my hometown. Some of the people that were in that pilot are people that I felt like should be on television. So season 2, we kicked off season 2 and we started filming in New Jersey. So
Yeah. Well, I think of the Jersey Shore. There's so many memories for me, but I was like an Atlantic City person. From high school, we go to Atlantic City, we'd stay lower Atlantic City. As I got older, moved up, and I'm actually contemplating writing a story about the summer of '68 and I found people's names that I remembered. I found them and connected and asked them. But Jersey Shore, a lot of memories there. And
it's a good place.
yeah, you did Asheville. Now, I did a road trip to Asheville probably about 6 years ago. So it was interesting. I did go to the Hole, which
Did
you
you like
have.
it?
Oh, great. I took the donuts back to our Airbnb, which was on Montfort Avenue, which is where you stayed at a B&B, I think.
Yep. Yeah, 1900 Mumford.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and great food. And there was a Curate, which is a James Beard winning place there. There was an Indian restaurant. He has a couple places. So Asheville is absolutely great. And we left there with the goal to go to this place in Ravenel, South Carolina, south of Charleston, because we saw a video doing garlic crabs. So
Mm.
we drove from there just to get the garlic crabs. So I understand this passion for food. I might not understand. I think maybe the last time I rode a bike was on the boardwalk in Wildwood. But the food I understand. Um, just so much here. All right, so we're talking Jersey Shore, Philly. The You did Pat's. I think what I could see, you you learned how to do the cheesesteak.
Yep.
Was there any moment that you just went, wow? You're like, mine exploded, and you went, I never thought of that, or fill me in.
It's so funny, there's a lot of those moments, right? People go, "Oh, what's your favorite city or what's your favorite place that you've been to?" And it's really hard because there's favorites for different reasons. I will tell you that there's favorites for different reasons. For example, like for this season 2, when we were in Portland, Maine, and I end the episode riding over the Casco Bridge to this outside the city of Portland to this farm. And there was this chef, and he literally has a restaurant on the farm. And he's got these little gazebos set up that you can dine in the gazebos on the farm. And he's doing unbelievable things with like specialty cocktails and just locally sourced food and food right from the farm and,
Right.
and seafood right from the shores of Portland. That was wow. You know what I mean? That was a wow moment for me. And there were a lot of those wow moments for me. There was, you know, uh, gosh, if I could think of another example, um, Chicago was a wow moment for me in that, we all think of deep dish pizza in Chicago. And yes, you have to
Right.
try deep dish pizza in Chicago. And we did. But Pequod's is really interesting because their deep dish is kind of done a little bit differently. It's kind of a mix between what I would call, let's say, a Chicago traditional deep dish pizza and a Detroit pizza. They layer the entire bottom, um, They put the dough down. They don't bring the dough up to the sides of the dish of the pan. They keep it flat, and then they take
Right.
the mozzarella cheese, and they put the cheese along the entire edge of the pan, and they create it. Literally creates a cheese layer on top of the dough up to the side of the pan. When that thing came out, and he cut it, and what you actually had was this burnt cheese crust along the side. Delicious and unexpected, for me, having had traditional deep dish pizza, but not this particular deep dish. So I think every place is different and has a wow moment. And I feel bad for anybody that by no means do I, every single place that we went to, I can tell you there were wow moments, restaurants and cities that we visited. So you got to watch
Right.
the episodes.
Right. Well, what I want people to understand, it says bike to bite. So let's talk about the bike, and how you plan out a route. Explain the format of the show.
That's a good question. So the format of the show, when we're looking, first thing we look at is what are some of the bike friendly cities that we can travel to? Because more and more today in the United States, cities are becoming a lot more bike friendly. Especially here, I haven't done New York City yet. It's on my list of things that I want to do, and I will do it. And New York has become incredibly bike friendly. But in season one, like Boston, when I went to school in Boston, I can tell you it was not a bike friendly city. And today it is an incredibly bike friendly city. So the first thing we'll look at is like, are there bike friendly cities out there? The other thing that I like to do is, are there cities that are out there that are bike friendly that don't always get the media love, right? Are there cities? Yes, we do a share of cities that get media love, but we also do a fair share of cities that don't always get the media love. And I think putting a spotlight on those cities and their biking infrastructure, and then we start to look at what are the food offerings in those cities that really define the essence or the ethos, if you will, of that city. And 50% of the people that we feature in each of our episodes have some type of sustainability story. It was one of the kind of filters that we wanted to have, as particularly because we were going to be airing on a network whose sole focus is about putting a spotlight on people, places, and things having a positive impact on the planet. So
Right.
we wanted to find restaurants that were doing things right, environmentally, sustainably, locally. And so we then start to then look, okay, where are these places in the city, and how do we design an interesting route that can also take us by some things that might be fun to look at that aren't necessarily food, some historical kind of points of interest, monuments, kind of tidbits of information that you probably wouldn't have known, like in Philly. One of my favorite authors in high school or poets was Edgar Allan Poe, and there's a house in Philly that's still designated as where he lived, and we ride by that, and things that you might not only always get to see. So trying to design routes around things that are kind of interesting and maybe sometimes a little bit off the beaten path. Chicago, we went to Walt Disney's birthplace, where he was born, where you wouldn't have, people don't think Walt Disney and equate it to Chicago. And
No,
so it's
no.
things like that.
Right. That's great fun. And just let you know, there's an Edgar Allan Poe house in Baltimore.
Yeah, he had
Yes.
he had a few houses.
Yes. Yes. There's so much to talk about. I want to cover some things for the audience. Number one, the show is bike2bites.com is the website,
Hmm.
and it's on EarthX TV, which is available through Spectrum if you have it, if you have
Spectrum, Direct
Direct
TV.
TV,
Hmm.
and there was another thought there. And if you're in England, Freeview.
Yeah, Freeview and Sky in the UK. Also in the US, Fubo, streaming service. You can get EarthX TV and Bike to Bites on Fubo. And more you're going to see EarthX appearing on some of these streaming platforms coming into 2024 and 2025. So,
So it's still growing.
yep,
And then there's the YouTube channel, and on Apple Podcasts, we have the podcast. This
we
is
do.
new.
Yes.
This is new.
Yep.
And I'm a podcast type of gal. I'm driving or I'm doing things, and well, music keeps me entertained for a couple seconds, and then I need some sort of stimulation. If I'm driving podcast, I don't get anxiety ridden in traffic. I have something occupying my time rather than trying to find the good beat in the song. Um, these shows, the travel shows, Stanley Tucci, Somebody Feed Phil did Nashville, and I went to a couple places there. So last summer, my girlfriend flew in from Oregon, and we did a road trip to Nashville, and hit some of the spots. So it isn't just watching it; you were sending people to these cities to find these places they normally wouldn't find. I want to say that on your podcast for your Jersey Shore, one of your guests was David Burke, Chef David Burke. And I will tell people, you have to go listen to that podcast. He is so on the money as a chef, so creative. I always considered him like the nose. He always dealt with flavors and development. And just listening to him, if you're a restaurateur, you'll learn something. So, like 2 Bites, Apple Podcast, I don't any place that you listen to your
Anywhere you can get
podcast,
podcasts. Yep.
you can listen to it. So I probably have more questions, but I don't want to keep you too long. So we come down to the real nitty gritty, my questions at the end of the show. Um, if you wake up tomorrow with a new talent, what would the new talent be?
Funny. I would like to be able to be better at doing things with my hands, like putting things together. Like when it comes to bicycles, I've had to really work hard to teach myself how to do that and to do it properly. Like my brother, my middle brother, he was born with a gift. I mean, he can put anything together. He can build something from scratch. He's very, very, like there's a joke in my house that don't ask dad to hang a picture because it's not going to come out well. And it's the truth. Like I wish I had that innate talent of being able to just figure out how to fix something, figure out how to build something. I don't have that. And anything, I am good with my hands when it comes to cooking. That much I'll give myself credit for. But
Okay, we're going to get to that.
yeah,
But it's good that you have a team doing that show because they're assembling the bike for you, aren't they?
no, I actually work on the bike myself. So
Oh,
I've
oh,
taught
okay.
myself how to take care of the bike. But it took a lot of work, and it's ongoing, continuing education. I'm by no means a master mechanic. I have one of those, but he's taught me a lot about what I need to learn on the fly to take care of the bike when I'm out on the road and there's no one there to help me.
Okay. For those cyclists who might be listening to this, why don't you wow them with what your bike is?
So I am riding on a Parley carbon fiber bike, custom made. Parley is a company that's based up in Boston, in Beverly, Massachusetts. Incredible company. I have a gravel version of that bike and a road bike. Uh, they are fitted with Chris King wheels and hubs. It's got the Shimano drivetrain on both of them, so with electric shifting. So they're the state of the art best bike that you could possibly create for yourself as a custom built bike. And I love them. Yeah, they're like the joke on the crew was that they would come up to my room with me after we were done shooting, and they were joking that they should come in, and they were wondering if they would find the bike in the bed next to me since
How much you love them.
yeah.
Okay, well, we have a comment. It says, I bet those bikes set you back a bit, but maybe that was under the production of the show.
We have Parley as a sponsor, Shimano as a sponsor. So in fairness, they didn't set me back because they're part of outfitting the show properly for us to do what we do, and we're very grateful that they're our sponsors. Park Tool is another sponsor. That's the company that makes all the tools that basically we use to work on the bike. So yeah.
Yeah. Next question. If you can go back and give your 18-year-old self a piece of advice, what would it be?
Follow your passion and not your pocketbook. I think it took me a long time to take a very circuitous route to get to where I ultimately landed. Um, had I stuck with what I knew I really wanted to do um, in the beginning, maybe I would have been. But I think everything I don't have regrets because I think everything that happened in life happened the way it was supposed to. But I think so many times, especially the younger generation, like I have two young adult daughters, they get caught up with um, worrying about the financial side of their careers. And what I try to instill upon them in them is follow your passion. Like that's the first and foremost thing that you should be focused on because the money will fall into place when it's supposed to. But if you start with your passion, you'll be so much further ahead of the game and won't have to make up for lost time. I made up for a lot of lost time. And I did. I was successful at making up for the lost time. But boy, I say to myself sometimes, how much more would I have been able to accomplish if I followed the passion and not the pocketbook? So
But I think you're right. Everything, this path leads to that one, leads to that one. And had you not taken those paths, you might not be where you are today. You said you like to cook.
mm,
So we always ask, what was your ultimate culinary fail?
oh boy. So there was one holiday. I always we usually host the holidays. My wife has a very large family, and we have a mix between religions in the family. So we celebrate all holidays. Uh, I'm Jewish, and my wife was Episcopalian, and she converted to Judaism years ago before we got married. But all of her sisters and brothers are either Episcopalian, Catholic. So we do all of it. And I think it's the best ever. Like we had such a
It's
great
wonderful.
time raising the kids, and family is really close, and everybody's very respectful of everybody and supports everybody. So we would host holidays at our house. And there was a holiday, I would always make a turkey. And I'm pretty good at making the turkey, but this one particular holiday, I think I misjudged the pound to time ratio to temperature ratio and wasn't on top of it the way I normally am, and it was really dry. And I knew it was really dry, and I did not like it, but nobody was going to admit to me that the turkey was not, moist enough. But I knew that it wasn't, so I felt like that was like a complete and utter fail because my turkey process is long. Like I brine my turkey the day before, like I prep all of the stuff that I do for the turkey between like I do my own take on a mirepoix and I do all of this stuff. And it was like, gosh, I just lost like 2 days worth of hard work because it didn't come out the way that I wanted it to. But it's okay.
It's okay. That's what gravy is for.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
From somebody who's done a dried turkey,
Yeah.
who knows plenty of that. Or my mother-in-law, may she rest, it was always dry. So gravy, 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 and it was palatable. Um, what's the best bite you've had all week?
Wow, this week I will tell you that and it's very simple. I made a flank steak on the grill and nothing to it. Salt, pepper, a little olive oil, low heat, and it was delicious. Didn't I know it's really good because my daughter was visiting us, and my wife asked her, "Do you want any steak sauce?" And my daughter was like, "It doesn't need any." So that felt very good.
That was a thumbs up.
Yep.
And I want to remind everybody all the links to everything that we talked about, whether it be Earth X TV or Bike to Bites. I have to say it slowly. Social media, YouTube is all there in the comments section. Remind them. All right, last question. What didn't I ask you that I probably should have?
Boy, you were pretty thorough. I think you covered everything. I think we can talk a whole lot about the days of my days in the infomercial business, but that's a conversation for another time.
Well, I thank you for sharing and wish you, we have Passover coming up, so have a good Seder.
Thank you very
Enjoy
much.
the matzah brie.
Yeah, right.
That's not one of my favorites, but
I make
enjoy.
mine without egg, believe it or not.
How do you do that?
It's just I use a little bit of cream, and I soak the matzo brie or the matzah for a while, and then I cinnamon, some sugar, and some jelly, and it doesn't need the egg to bind it because it tends to bind itself with the cream as long as you don't overcook it. So it's very good. Although I like it with egg too, but like I like it without.
Well, I want to thank you very much, Garrett Bess, and enjoy talking to you. What a great interview. And the best of holidays and spring's here, and get out on your bike and ride.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure.
All right. Everyone, I have a couple of comments to make, and then we'll be ready to go. Okay, let you go, I guess. Next week's guest is Raman Ganasharam. She is a journalist, historian, and chef. She's studying race and ethnicity in the American and polycultural U.S. foodways. She is the author of The General's Cook, a novel about Chef Hercule Posey, who was the chef at Mount Vernon for George Washington. And she is a food historian, and I think it'll be an amazing, amazing show. So I hope you'll mark your calendars and you'll join us next Thursday. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at food@jmoreliving.com or Instagram at Dara Cooks. And on Facebook, if you type in the Food Enthusiast, you will find my page there as well. All shows are immediately archived in video form on JMOR's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. May your plates always, always remain full. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you next Thursday.